stability in the party organization and control kept the British colonialists on their toes in the entire span of his active life. After his death on 7th May 1946, Herbert Macaulay remains a hero of his country, which recognized his anti-colonial struggles. Today, Nigeria's 10 naira coin bears his oval face and trademark moustache. Western Spring Television identifies Herbert Macaulay as a major character in history.
Every wild animal serves a purpose in a balanced and functioning ecosystem. But demand for bushmeat can destroy that balance. Deforestation and trade in live wildlife put us all at risk of disease outbreak like Ebola, Lassa fever, and even COVID-19. We can all help prevent extinction and diseases by saying no to illegal bushmeat. Keep them wild and keep us safe.
The Korean War of 1950 to 1953 pitched North and South Korea against each other in response to intrigues by nations beyond their border with different interests from those canvassed by the two brother nations. The Korean War had all the nuances of an external conflict induced by powers that were interested in subjugating North and South Korea. Japan had leveraged on its military power to annex Korea in 1900 and imposed a military union that did not sit well with the citizens. Japan not only lost its war of conquest against Korea, all its powers were obliterated by the effect of the World War II. The end of World War II got Korea divided into two nations along 38th parallel lines by the instrumentality of the United States of America and the Union of Soviet Socialist Republic. The Korean War lapsed into a Cold War when it stopped the prying eyes of external forces into the internal affairs of a nation now divided along its north and southern territories. Western Spring Television identifies the Korean War as a major event in history. Samuel Ladoke Akintola was a frontal figure in the historical moves that birthed an independent Nigeria from colonial Britain. As a freedom activist, he deployed his wits, energy, intellect, and oratory skills to prepare the grounds for constitutional talks that eventually culminated in the country's independence in 1960. The 13th Ààrẹ Ọ̀nà Kakanfò of Yoruba land cut his teeth as a politician when he became a foundation member of Action Group, the dominant political party in the Western region, and was elected the party's parliamentary leader of opposition at the Federal House of Representatives. The crisis in the Action Group, which pitched Samuel Ladoke Akintola against his leader, was not only a sore point in his colorful political life, but a reversal of gains which characterized the exemplary leadership of Awolowo Akintola premiership. 23 years after his death, Oyo State University of Technology Ogbomosho was renamed Samuel Ladoke Akintola University of Technology to keep his memory alive. Western Spring Television identifies Samuel Ladoke Akintola as a major character in history. Born 16th September 1923, named Harry Lee Kwan and known as Lee Kuan Yew, he was often addressed by his initials of LKY. Lee Kuan Yew was a barrister and the first Prime Minister of Singapore between 1959 and 1990. Educated at Raffles Institution from 1936 to 1940 and the Fitzwilliam House between 1947 and 1949, Lee Kuan Yew established a highly effective and anti-corrupt governance system that midwifed the transformation of Singapore into a high net worth income economy within a generation. He never hid his exception to Western mode democratic ideal, which he believed had not assisted developing nations to attain good government. Before his death on 23 March 2015, the People's Action Party, which he founded, had used its political influence to establish the United World College of Southeast Asia to expand his economic ideas among countries that constitute the Asian Tiger. Western Spring Television identifies Lee Kuan Yew as a major character in history.
Can you imagine the feeling when you get your news as the break with facts and clarity? Our news are reported as it is.
In Africa, and all those who masterminded the way it happened will have to pay a price.
Enjoy Western programs, projecting culture and tradition to the world. Brought to you as the break and recapped every hour for your update.
Fellow Nigeria, how to improve your welfare is of paramount importance to me.
Produced and brought to you in a unique way never before seen.
Western Spring
And Western Spring Television. Television is coming home in your color and culture.
The Berlin Conference of 1884 defined the configuration of Africa, which hitherto existed as a continent of multiple kingdoms and empires under native rulers. The conference, otherwise referred to as Congo Conference, regulated European colonization and trade in Africa as initiated by German leader Otto von Bismarck. The Berlin Conference is often called the scramble for and partitioning of Africa, as each of the imperial powers carved separate portions of the continent for themselves without recourse to racial and cultural identities and differences. 137 years after the Berlin Conference was held, Africa remains a legitimized playground for European nations that sought to exploit its wealth and resources and manipulate its human capital to promote trades and investments of Western powers. Western Spring Television identifies Berlin Conference as a major event in history. James Ajibolaige was a lawyer who obtained his first degree in classics from Nigeria's premier University of Ibadan. Born
Western Spring Television. Ours it is.
Top of the morning to you. Thank you for joining this special Independence Day broadcast on Western Spring Television, channel 190 DTT on Star Times and Rave 91.7 FM. As Nigeria celebrates 63 years of independence as a nation, we intend to interrogate the country's existence of 63 years, the President's Independence Day speech, and other related matters. You can be sure that on WSTV and Rave 91.7 FM will bring you quality conversations all of the time. My name is Daniel Odeyemi, and my co-host this morning.
I am Evelyn Ohiolei. Thank you for joining us today. Remember that we are live on Facebook at Rave 91.7 FM and also on WSTV Western Spring Television on Facebook and on YouTube. You can join us, connect with us, and let's have a great conversation together.
All right, let's get rolling to take a panoramic look at the journey of 63 years since independence. We are joined live by two elder statesmen, Otunba Abiola Oloke and architect Goke Omigbodun. Good morning, sirs.
Good morning, Daniel.
It's my pleasure to be here.
Well,
although I don't think we qualify to be called elder statesmen because both of us were born after independence, myself first, and Abiola shortly after. I was born in February, and Abiola was born in August.
Not the same year.
No, please just go on.
But of course, we will still call you elder statesman. After all, you said some days ago that you started calling Baba Akande Baba at 60, and now you're 60. So you're an elder statesman. All right. So we're joined live by Otunba Oloke and architect Goke Omigbodun.
All right, so let's get into the conversation. 63 years ago, when the Union Jack was lowered and the Nigerian flag was raised for the first time, our fathers and mothers were basking in the euphoria of a new dawn. They must have shouted freedom at last, when the reins of power was handed over to Alhaji Tafawa Balewa, Prime Minister, at then joyful song, happy dance steps, laughter, giggles, kisses and hugs lavishly shared. People looked forward to what the nation would become. So I'd like to start with architect Omigbodun. 63 years on, 63 years of Nigeria's existence as an independent entity. Do you think, we have been through ups and downs. What do you feel about Nigeria at 63?
Well, it's been a mixed bag, some good, some bad, majorly ugly. But at 63, we should have been a lot better off than we are right now. We shouldn't be so dependent on oil to the extent that everything revolves around oil, and once oil subsidy is, I'm talking of crude oil now, because there's some other oil that we always had, palm, and some other countries came to take the seedlings from us, and now they dominate the market. And for now, there's still so much poverty in the land. I don't understand what we call independence, so to say, in the context of the fact that right now our currency is still tied to the dollar. A lot of the things that we do have to do with expectations from those who are abroad right now. In fact, everybody that is at home is willing to go abroad. our state of governance is poor. Our democracy is just evolving. At 63, we should have evolved a better expression of democracy than we have right now. We just have what I would call a pretext to democracy. And we try to justify the fact that those that are in the helms of affairs are wear flowing agbada and flowing gowns. So it means that we have democracy. No, because the real definition of democracy is government of the people, for the people, by the people. I am not sure that the government is for the people right now. We have a government of the people, quite all right. I'm not sure it's for the people. It's not for all the people. The elites are perhaps the ones that the government is for right now. And it is not by the people. It is not by those who are intellectually inclined and passionately disposed to giving the right direction to governance that are in power right now. It is those who can buy the conscience of the people. So it is government by the rich, the merchants, who have made poverty the general stock for the people. And when it's election year, things will be rolled out, all kinds of palliatives, so to say, money market, women, money, and all kinds of things, just to buy the conscience of the people. I don't think that is what the founding fathers of Nigeria must have had in their dreams for Nigeria. And I'm able to say this so confidently. You know, I gave a caveat, though jokingly, that both Abiola and I were born after independence, but the two of us were born by people who always had passion for good governance. My own father was the first chairman of the then Osogbo District Council, and I later heard so many stories from him about the dreams, the hopes that they had, the kind of head start that they gave into governance. When he became chairman of Osogbo local government, there was no electricity. This same Osogbo state capital, where all of you are looking so radiant now, right now, there was no single tarred road, there was no pipe-borne water. But within the space of the first 2 years that he was chairman of the local government, electricity became a thing that people could enjoy in Osogbo. Pipe-borne water came. The first road was tarred. That's the station road there in Osogbo right now. If it were in the case of the people who are in government right now, that road would be named after himself or his first son. But that's not the case. It's named Station Road. And so many other roads hence were tarred. Can you now imagine if from that little that I just gave an example of one man on a district council, can you imagine the pockets all around the Nigeria of then now developing at that pace? Can you imagine the kind of development that Obafemi Awolowo gave Western region, that we could have television ahead of so many European countries, that when there was such a healthy competition between the regions at that beginning, I'm just talking of the pace with which we start and how we have slowed down so badly. And we could have the universities. The North was the first to have its own university. It may shock you, because University of Ibadan was not a regional university. And then the East and the West started struggling to have their own respective universities. And I think by 1962, all regions had universities. Can you imagine 60 to 62? And by 1965, there was Cocoa House, which was the tallest building in West Africa by any means, including Lagos. But gradually now, as I'm talking to you now, Cocoa House was dedicated when we were toddlers. Cocoa House was dedicated in 1965. It was started in 1961. And till today, outside of Lagos, Cocoa House is still the tallest building in Western Nigeria. Ogun, Oyo, Ondo, all those places combined. And it pains me that we have not kept faith with the original founding fathers of the democracy that we have in Nigeria today.
Very well said, Architect Omigbodun, and we will still revisit these stories that you've said. We need to go back memory lane. But let's take a look at the president's speech yesterday, Otunba Oloke. If you look at that speech, you realize that the president acknowledged the fight for the soul of the nation, by our founding fathers. And I'll just read a part of that excerpt. He said, Nigeria is remarkable in its formation and essential character. We are a broad and dynamic blend of ethnic group, religions, traditions, and culture. Yet, Our bonds are intangible, yet strong, invisible, yet universal. However you look at the nation, Otunba, Oloke, it seems divided than united now. What steps can the current administration take to unite the nation, so that we can have peace and progress?
Thank you very much, Daniel. And once again, thank you for having me here again. See, before we begin to talk about what President Tinubu said yesterday, we have to acknowledge the fact that right now he's the president of Nigeria. If he weren't the president, he wouldn't speak say the kind of things he said yesterday. There is a saying on the streets, I think it came about a few years back. It's not a curse really. I think it's just like an advice. People will say, may Nigeria not happen to you. May Nigeria not happen to you. We're talking about, I've listened to Goke here. We talk about Nigeria, as if Nigeria actually began in 1960. No, it didn't. There were regional governments in Nigeria that were doing well, planning for that independence. Some said they were ready, some said they were not ready, but at the same time, they were governing their spaces more adequately than whatever you have now. So anybody can come up with any sort of platitudes as far as his courage allows him to say. But when you hold the reins of power, it's not what you say, but what you do. In the past, how many months that the president has been there, in what ways has he actually tried to make things better for Nigerians, particularly the common man? I'm sure all of us will answer that question in negative. So what exactly are we talking about? He's not an opposition person anymore. It's somebody who really doesn't have to say anything but can act for good or for evil. And we saw where the last set of courage, led us to. So many, sometimes we are tempted to begin to use the dominant paradigm to look at, development. How good is society? We have several skyscrapers, we have several television stations, we have several radio stations, and so on and so forth. But the human suffering, let me put it that the human suffering index, how is it? And that is exactly what I will imagine that the president will concentrate on, in resolving, not just mouthing platitudes at independence as if we've not gone this route, before. Let me stop there for now.
Well, let's talk about unity quickly.
Okay.
How can this current administration ensure that we unite?
I think in terms of the unity of the country, the genie is really out of the bottle.
Really?
Yes. We will understand ourselves and empathize with ourselves more if we have the kind of government or governance that really suits us. When the British ruled, they brought us together. And when they were leaving, they left a kind of governance or government system or governmental system that they knew, not felt, was the best for us, which was a parliamentary system. Now you have you are talking unity, but you cannot just talk unity in a vacuum. Why does it look that we are not united? Is the disunity from so to say, the man on the street, the Ohiolei, or is the disunity among the elites, which then seeps down? If we had a system in which almost every ethnic group can have access to the top jobs and then be able to use that access to develop their localities, even this issue of unity will not be so pronounced. Are Indians united? I can mention several places with multi-ethnic characters that you can actually take a deeper look into the fabric of their societies, the unity, that word unity is nebulous. I think the content of the person, you have a federalist system, for instance, that makes talks about quota, regardless of merit. So how do you then engender unity? Unity in quote. So the system of governance itself has to be rejigged. You have to rework it, probably go back to what was handed over to us, which the military, altered. And when the military altered it, in bringing us the military government, which eventually became this so-called federal system, the whole aim at that time, if you remember, was unity and faith, peace and progress. But we have seen for more than 4 decades now that there is no, probably 5 decades, that there is really no unity. And so we should not bother about that. Let's concentrate on making life better for people. So that when his dad finished from Forabe College and rode
a bicycle.
It wasn't a bicycle, it was kutupa, what they call it, a horse. Into town. He was a small boy. He wasn't even born there. He did not stay in Sierra Leone. He did not go to the US. He came back home to develop Osun. There is no, if a graduate is quote unquote unlucky enough to finish from a federal university today, the next thing I'm sure is to be to Japa. Unity is the last thing on his mind. Where are the opportunities?
Otunba Oloke, talking about that, let's dwell on it a little bit before we go to the reforms, or should I say the promised reforms of President Tinubu. Architect Omigbodun, do you agree with Otunba Oloke that we started to miss our steps in 1966 when late General Agunyi-Ironsi, jettisoned the federalism system of government, where even regional government had their own constitutions? Would you agree with that?
I agree with him with a little amendment. He started off by scaring me by saying that the genie is out of the bottle. And when you say the genie is out of the bottle, it means you can't get the genie back into the bottle. It means it can't be stopped. I am unrepentantly optimistic about anything whatsoever. And therefore, I choose to believe that it's not the genie out of the bottle now. Let's leave it as a chicken out of the cage, which can still be caught and brought back. But the truth is that it was the military that actually had that unification decree. And the moment, the military by its very nature is a unitary system anywhere in the world. They do not have two army chiefs in the United States of America, where they have a very well developed, federation. Okay, they have a proper federation there, but they have only one service chief. They have several police chiefs. That, in fact, within a state, you can have 2 or 3 police chiefs, because there is one for the states, there is one for the county, but there's a way they all work together. But the military would always have only one command. And so that was the aberration of military coming into our situation here. And one would have expected that they would be able to extend to the citizenry the kind of esprit de corps that they have amongst themselves. Look, let me tell you, as divided as you may say that Nigeria is right now, go ahead and touch one Fulani soldier or Igbo soldier in Ede right now and see how all the soldiers will come out and deal with you, irrespective of wherever they are from. But we as a people, as the citizens, are not able to imbibe that. So the unity in diversity that we ought to have, that started with the regional governments that he spoke about, that I also mentioned earlier on, went away, was lost during the unitary government. And the military still tried to have the creation of states, because the politicians will still not allow them to just go away like that. There was somebody like Shehu Shagari, who was first Minister of Finance under, no, they call them Federal Commissioner of Finance under Yakubu Gowon then, before Chief Obafemi Awolowo took over. And all these ones were singing songs into the air. In fact, in the case of Obafemi Awolowo, it was not just Federal Commissioner for Finance, he was Vice Chairman of the Federal, it's not Federal Military Council or whatever they called it then. It had a military name. It was not Supreme Military Council. I don't know. I've forgotten some of those names now. This young man will know better. So those were the things that people like Obafemi Awolowo would try as much as possible to influence. But at the end of the day, even Obafemi Awolowo left the Gowon government with a note that indicated that he was not satisfied with the way, the direction that the government was going, because in spite of the creation of states, because the creation of states was like supposed to reintroduce a semblance of the diversity and still maintain the unity. But there is a big difference between unity and the unitary system of government. And we have now carried that on into the present situation now. And that is why somebody like myself, as a member of the Afenifere, that believes very, very much in the devolution of powers and the restructuring of the polity that we have right now, will say that we should move away from a situation whereby every governor goes cap in hand to go and beg for money in Abuja. What can you do with monies that you take as a beggar? I don't think there is much you can do. But there is a lot you can do with the money that you generate and you spend on your own, and then you take a little to the center for us to maintain a strong common currency, which will not be dependent on the dollar, and for us to also have a unified defense system that will make sure that the territorial integrity of Nigeria is protected. In that case, the governor will be able to generate money, and like in the regional governments, the regions were able to build cocoa house, build the television stations, build universities, build the Kola North pyramids and all those things, and generate, because they knew it was their money. And so they were determined to work. But now it's not a matter of my money anymore. So, and the way we are now going about it, I do not support. Ompadek, there's one in the Northeast. We are also asking for our own now. Everything about how do I take a little of the cake? How do I take a little of the cake? We should go back to baking the cake and being allowed to eat the cake to some extent and taking a little ration of the cake to the center, and then it will become more competitive for somebody like me to want to be chairman of a local government or a governor. What would I want to do being president except just carry a big title like the man there now is carrying?
Thank you, Architect Omigbodun. Now, let's get to shake some of the tables, Architect. I mean, Otunba Oloke was eager at that time. Let's talk about some of the
admit him as
reforms.
An architect. So call him architect.
Okay, so during the president's speech yesterday, president's independent speech yesterday, the president, Bola Tinubu, announced that there would be a temporary wage increase for low-income workers. And he made mention of the cash of 25,000 naira increase. But for some reason, Labour rejected it and, said the 25,000 naira provisional wage increment for low workers is a no-no. Labour also rejected the government's proposed 6-month period for the provisional increase covers. Rather, it should run until a new minimum wage is approved. The unions also insisted that the wage increase be reviewed upwards to 35,000 naira, which we saw the Chief of Staff, Femi Gbajabiamila, made the announcement yesterday that there has been an upward review to 35,000 naira. Now, the question that is on the lips of so many is, this increment in wage, as announced by President Bola Tinubu and reviewed later by the Chief of Staff, Femi Gbajabiamila, do you think it's a thought-out plan, or it's just, is a soothing statement to appeal to the labor unions so they do not go on strike tomorrow?
I like the word that you use. Is it thought out or is it well thought? It's not a well thought out plan. You see, if you make a mistake, just admit you made a mistake and reverse yourself. Humans, it's only God that is infallible. Humans are fallible. They make mistakes. You can correct yourself. But if you believe it's not a mistake, stay the course and damn the consequences. It was a mistake for the president to have taken a decision that, I don't know whether you want to call it removal of subsidy or whatever, that took the price of petrol from 165 to 580 naira within 2 weeks. That is the original sin. 25,000. Don't forget that the federal workers that are actually threatening to strike, they're only 2% of the labor force in Nigeria. I support their plans, but I believe it is how many months too late now? They should have done this in June. If they had confronted this government in June, we would not be where we are today. That is number one. They've also made that mistake. So it's probably a bit late now because the government is comfortable in power. They can then begin to do knee-jerk, I don't want to say thoughtless, but knee-jerk decisions. In one day you can. Do you know how much that increment is? Let's assume the 25,000 was planned and it was rejected. And then in 1 or 2 hours, it was increased by 10,000. Just like that. Do you know the volume of money we are talking about? Now, all this money that we are talking about going into purchase of rice, the purchase of buses and so on and so forth, plus the increment they are talking about, if they had not increased the price of fuel, would it have been necessary? If it's because you believe that the federal refineries are going to come on stream, and that is why you want to do it for 6 months, why couldn't you have left the situation as it was, made sure that the refineries are in order, whatever else you want to do are in order, and then announce this removal, so-called removal of subsidy?
But Otunba, the president and even economists, experts said that the country was at the time on a precipice. Nigeria is broke. We have no money.
Yes. Evelyn, see, government is sovereign. Government can owe until, I will say, even hours to its departure, the Buhari regime was borrowing trillions.
Very true.
So if you need to borrow to make sure your people are comfortable, what is wrong with that? Forget all these economies, what they are saying, whether we were tethering or we are not tethering on the brink of whatever. The important thing is when something that is like a pillar, it's just like you are saying, okay, there's a master pole. These people understand it, architects, when they say a master pole that suspends a ceiling. And then you say it's in your way. That you cannot dance very well because that master pole. So you say, cut it off. And then you cut it off. The house doesn't come down immediately, but you begin to see teetering, cracks, and then you begin to do emergency support for the building. This is exactly what the government is doing. 2% of the population. Even when you please the workers, that is just the formal sector. The informal sector, when they rise up, how are you going to solve the problem other than, to address the root cause of the problem? If we knew refineries are going to work in 6 months, then delay your action. Don't say you are filled with courage and then you throw everybody into problem. Delay your action. The economists that are talking, don't they look at the other indices? Only 12% of those eligible for university admissions are able to get into universities. They're not looking at that one. On every economic development or human development index you want to look at, and that's why some people say Nigeria is a failed state, hardly will you get anyone that tilts us above 40%. Look at, I don't want to go technical now because we're talking about something that has to, and everybody knows where people are feeling it. So in any case, why are you not going to be going into details of this one is 40%, that one is 53%. No. People are feeling it.
All right, very well, Otunba. I'm sorry for cutting you short. We need to go on a break now. When we come back, we'll talk more about the promised reforms of President Bola Tinubu. The show continues. It's still the Independence Day show at WSTV and Rave 91.7 FM. Don't you go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Welcome back. You're welcome to the special broadcast of Nigeria's independence. Nigeria is 63, and we are, looking at a panoramic view of what we have achieved over the years. This is streaming live on Western Spring Television on Facebook and on YouTube, as well as on Rave 91.7 FM on Facebook and on YouTube.
All right, Architect Omigbodun, let's look at some of the germane parts of President Tinubu's speech yesterday. He said he's not part of those that will build a mansion in the mud, and Nigeria must make sacrifices. Apparently, he was referring to the fuel subsidy pronouncement. So I'm taking it from where Otunba Oloke stopped. Now, you look at the situation that we are. I just want to ask two sides of the divide. One, really, don't you think we must make sacrifices so that we can have a better nation? That's one. The other leg is that some people are saying that if it's about the fuel subsidy removal, in 2012, when erstwhile President Goodluck Jonathan, wanted to do the same, Bola Tinubu was part of those, including Femi Falana, who protested against it. Had a total shutdown of the nation. Kwamwan was there at TBS singing, blasting music into their ears. And here we are, over 8 years after that, we're back to square one.
Well, I think we should leave that aspect of that protest a long time ago now. Why should we? And it may shock people, why is Omigbodun speaking like this? It is because Governor Fayemi came out to say that they only played a prank on us. He has confessed as a pastor. I know if you confess your sins, then we should forgive you. Yes, it will be written there, we will always refer to it. So they played on the intelligence of Nigerians.
But architect,
how the Fayemi said it. That's what they played politics.
You said they have confessed, we should forgive them and move on. There are some talks in some quarters that the president, the APC, ought to offer a sincere apology to Nigerians because of what they did in 2012.
Okay, I thought maybe what Kayode Fayemi said was enough request for forgiveness. But
was that an apology?
If it was not an apology, well, let me join Nigerians to say, other than just admitting that you did evil, please apologize for the evil that you did, so I can continue with my trend of thought.
Please do.
The speech of Bola Ahmed Tinubu was smart in only one respect. And when I say smart, you must remember that I come from the world of development economics, having worked with the United Nations Development Program, UNDP. I understood that whenever you are coming up with any objective, it must be specific, it must be measurable, it must be attainable, it must be relevant to the situation, it must be time-bound. That is the acronym SMART that I said earlier on. The only smart thing that President Tinubu said was that we are going to pay 25,000 naira every month for low-income workers for the next 6 months. Nothing else is smart about what he said. And some people will say, oh, that speech was brief as it was. It could have been specific enough to let us know what you are doing about insecurity in the country. It should have been specific enough to let us know that, yes, you made a mistake. You put the cart before the horse by going ahead to remove the oil subsidy without first making sure that the minimum wage was in place. I do not agree that it does not take eternity to let minimum wage be in place. And when Abiola was saying that the people ought to have gone on strike by June, with all due respect, I disagree a little bit with him. In fact, they ought to have gone on strike way back November, December last year. And then we would not have an APC government in place that is continuing with the suffering that we are having right now. Because all they have done in Yoruba parlance, and now they are beating us with the more painful part of the cane. Let me tell you, I said it on one of your radio programs recently, and I want everybody to hear, if this is the only thing that you will take away from my participating in this program today, to me it is profound that I have discovered that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu contested to be president only because he wants to wear the title. That man is not prepared for governance at all.
You believe it was just for his dreams?
It is just for his dreams. There is no single step that he has taken that has not been a misstep. Everything, and in fairness to him, he's been humble enough in a few situations to say, oh, okay, that was a wrong step, let's reverse. You know, when Abiola was speaking just now, he also said that even on this 25,000, 35,000 thing, I think it's extremely laughable. Maybe we all don't understand, because I don't understand, but let me concede you may understand. Are you saying that they are moving the minimum wage from 30,000 to 35,000? Is that what you're saying?
Additional to what they are earning.
For who are the poor earning workers?
No, for federal workers.
Yeah, I say, who are those poor federal earning workers? Up to scale what to what?
Nebulous.
That's what I'm saying. Even that one that I said is smart, it's not even smart enough for us to know, is it everybody in the federal service that would get that? I run an organization, and for some time now, I said, because of the difficulty in the country, for every worker, right from the helper, the least paid worker, to the administrators, add so small amount of money, but everybody got that, and consistently everybody was getting that little amount, so that at least they will adjust to. So the person that I said should handle the pay slip knew that even that little amount of money would be added to mine too, even as a trustee of the school. So everybody got that little addition. Is that what Bola Ahmed Tinubu is saying for Nigeria? Will somebody on level 17 also take that 35,000 naira? What is the definition of the low-income worker? Where does it stop on the federal salary scale? And I have also argued on the volume of the funds that has gone into this oil subsidy thing. On an annual basis, at least if we didn't know any figure, year 2022, $15.7 billion was budgeted for the oil subsidy, and it was taken out of our money. That money for oil subsidy alone was more than the entire budget of all the 36 states of the Federation, including that of the Federal Capital Territory, all put together. And this was going only to members of MOMAN. A few members of MOMAN, just about 7 or 8 of them, only increased to about 21 recently. That is evil. Those are the things that President Ahmed Tinubu should look after, and not these nebulous speeches, just hiding, not seeming to know what he is doing, just being complacent, wearing the title, I am the president and commander-in-chief, and not discharging the responsibilities to make life easier for the people.
Thank you, Architect. Otunba, let's look at federal fiscalism. You know, a number of people are canvassed for that. I'm sure you probably also are part of that school of thought. Why can't states pay according to their ability and environmental dictates? in the spirit of true federalism?
It's because they have jettisoned the parliamentary system. You have this federal system, that has, corrupted everything. If I have a rock beside my house now, or a stream beside my house, and I want to blast that rock, I can't touch it. I have to go to Abuja to go and take it. So there is no reason. Although what they said they fix federally is minimum, the minimum wage. But even sometimes that minimum may be too much for some categories of employers, even public sector employers. So unless you go to that route, you cannot be, you don't want that tree there anymore. So why are you just cutting the leaves? Well, some leaves, some trees can die if you cut their branches and leaves, but most will not die. You have to go to the root of the problem. If you don't touch the tree and you make sure you clip the roots, then you are going to have the kind of result that you are looking at. So saying that states, sometimes states will say, oh, no, we cannot afford it. And a lot of states really have not even paid the 25,000, 30,000, 33,000. They have not paid. They said they cannot afford it. So even the minimum set at the federal level is still not being observed.
All right.
Now,
okay, we are running out of time. So I'd just like to take your parting shot. Nigeria at 63. What are you looking forward to? Let me start with our architect.
Well, I'm looking forward to better governance. That's all I'm looking forward to. And that better governance will come from us, the people. We should stop selling our votes. The day we stop selling our votes to the richest merchants who have always made us very poor, and will eventually, after 4 years, still roll out the funds for us to still gullibly vote them into power again. And even if they don't get enough of those to buy, they rewrite other figures and make sure they sustain themselves in power, then that's when Nigeria will move forward. So it's in the hands of the people. Be determined this time to say we want good governance. We will not sell our votes. We'll vote for those who have the passion, who have the integrity, who have the vision, who have a track record that we can rely upon, and then we can all move forward together.
All right, Otunba, Oloke, Nigeria at 63. Your message to Nigerians?
Yes, to Nigerians or to the government?
Nigerians or the government?
I think Nigerians should be more prepared to ask for their rights towards what he said, good governance. We're all for good governance. But sometimes they said that it is not given, it is taken. If they just look at the NLC issue, if they had continued to be complacent, they wouldn't get the 35,000 increment and all that they are talking about. So I don't see any government behaving responsibly unless it is challenged.
All right. Thank you so much. It's been an interesting conversation with our elder statesman. I want to say that again, even if you will not agree. I am saying it, elder statesman. Thank you so much for joining us today, architect.
The senior one and the junior one.
Thank you so much for joining us, architect Goke, Omigbodun, and also Otunba, Abiola, Oloke. It's so nice to have you on the show this morning.
Thank you very much.
Yes, it's a pleasure to be here. For me, born in February, and for Abiola, born in August. You know who is older.
All right, that's the budget that we can take this morning. Thank you for joining us, dear esteemed listeners and viewers. My name is Daniel Odeyemi.
I am Evelyn Ohiolei. Stay tuned for Spring Sports right here on Western Spring Television.